Funding for Schaeferless is provided by
Skillshare, the sponsor of today's video. As a kid, I watched a lot of great shows. On Nickelodeon, we got SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron, Drake and Josh, iCarly, Ned's Declassified, and so on and so forth. Disney Channel, we had Phineas and Ferb, and actually that was the only show I watched on Disney Channel as a kid. But then there's Cartoon Network, the gold standard during the early 2000s. I may have started out as a Nickelodeon baby, but once I started watching Cartoon Network, that's when I truly became a connoisseur of children's media. So much greatness. We had Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Camp Lazlo, Flapjack, Total Drama, Adventure Time, Regular Show, Star Wars, The fucking Clone Wars. Wait, did I say the gold standard during the early 2000s? I meant to say, the mid to late 2000s. You can add this to the script right now. You can add this to the video right now. Just me realizing I made a mistake earlier. Anyway, Star Wars The fucking Clone Wars. Just so much variety on this incredible channel. Of course, looking back on it, the one Cartoon Network show that I still think about a ton to this day, the one that left the biggest impact on my life going into adulthood, is without a doubt The Clone Wars. I mean, it's really f***ing obvious. Patrick and I are doing a retrospective of the whole show, and it's the jumping off point for every Star Wars project currently being made. But you know what? Clone Wars shouldn't even count. It's its own separate entity. No, the true Cartoon Network original from the late 2000s that made me into the person I am today is Chowder. Chowder. Thanks to streaming services like HBO Max, I've been able to revisit a lot of shows from my childhood, and while most of them surprisingly still hold up pretty well, very few got me as excited to revisit each episode quite like Chowder. As the saying goes, this show is like a box of chocolates. You never know what fucking insane nonsensical shit is gonna pop out when you watch an episode. And I love this show for that. I love this show so much that when I recently started playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time ever, I just named my protagonists after the Chowder characters, and I have never been more satisfied with a decision in my life. For the uninitiated, Chowder is a show about Chowder, a young bear, cat, rabbit thing, this show itself isn't quite sure, who serves as an apprentice chef to Mung Daal, perhaps the greatest character ever created for anything ever. Most episodes revolve around Mung cooking some sort of weird dish, only for things to go wrong due to Chowder's ferocious appetite or scatterbrained nature. There's also other characters, like the tough rock monster Schnitzel that works for Mung and only ever says Rada. Beautiful. There's Mung's crabby wife Truffles, his mortal enemy rival chef Endive, her apprentice Panini who has an extreme crush on Chowder. There's Gazpacho, who's a fruit stand vendor who always gets into wacky misadventures with Chowder. There's Chestnut, who's this guy who speaks in rhymes and mistakes objects for other objects. There's this red kiwi guy with squiggly arms. There's C.H. Greenblatt, the actual creator of Chowder, who's a puppet in this show. There's this one pig baby thing that got laid from an egg from a minotaur guy inside of a deadly maze, and he does a dance where he sings boom chaka chaka chaka, and nobody can explain why this is the most horrifying abomination in existence, but it just is. Chowder is insane. Anyway, not only are the characters great on their own, what with their top-notch vocal deliveries and excellent jokes that we'll get to later, but it's the dynamics between these characters that really shine. Panini's continuous unrequited love for Chowder is exclusively played for comedy, rather than being an aspect of her character we're supposed to identify with, like most other shows do with childhood crushes. And I think that's perfect. It's consistently funny and it doesn't get old. Whereas in a show that took this sort of crush seriously, it would be the worst part of the show by far. Chowder and Schnitzel are also a great pairing. It's similar to SpongeBob and Squidward, but it's got its own unique vibe to it. I mean, the fact that Schnitzel is such a well-defined character in spite of the fact that we never understand what he's saying is just incredible. And I always get a kick out of him and Chowder getting paired together. Chowder and Gazpacho are a lovable, goofy pairing as well, and I adore pretty much every interaction Mung has with everyone. His exasperation with Chowder's antics, his snideness towards Schnitzel, his fear of Truffles, his furious rivalry with Endive, all of these are a recipe for, well, comedy gold. Have I mentioned yet that Mung is the best character on the show? Because yeah. The other cool thing about Chowder is its world. There's practically no limitations to any of the character designs or wacky rules of this society, and the creativity is so overflowing as a result. The surreal fantasy dishes they cook up are fun, and hey, I like food in general, so this sort of thing is definitely right up my alley. Aside from the characters, this show's signature aspect is its nonsensical sense of humor. And to be honest, nonsensical is putting it lightly. This is one of the most off-the-wall, batshit insane television programs I've ever witnessed. And I'll be the first to admit, it takes a little while to find its footing. The first third or so of season 1 had me worried because a lot of the humor is basically just fart jokes. And they keep coming at an alarming rate. I was pretty worried on this rewatch, like, oh god, is this show really not as good as I remember? No, it is. It just takes a little bit to get to the good stuff, and it's totally worth the wait. As the series continues, it gets more and more confident in the zany, format-breaking jokes that it wants to tell. I see no reason to beat around the bush any longer. If you've seen the show, you know exactly what we need to talk about. The fourth wall breaks.
Get that camera out of my face!
Chowder is far from the first cartoon, or show in general, to break the fourth wall, aka having the characters acknowledge that they're in a TV show.
We've only got 11 minutes.
But no other show to date has done it with such finesse and taken the concept of a fourth wall break as far as Chowder has. It's truly a sight to behold. It starts off simple, with cute little moments like the characters pointing out the Cartoon Network logo and how it refuses to come off no matter how many times they scrub it. You know, the kind of fourth wall break you'd expect. But everything goes off the rails in the best possible way in the episode Brain Grub. In this episode, Mung is worried that Chowder's too much of a scatterbrain to keep helping in the kitchen, so he bakes him some brain grub to increase his IQ. Chowder, being the lovable scamp that he is, eats too much of the brain food and becomes too intelligent, questioning everything around him to the point where, well, I'm just gonna let the show do its thing.
There's a reason why we're all weirdos to make strange food. We're in a cartoon.
Cartoon?
Yes.
So Chowder uses his brain power to transform the show into a boring cooking talk show, where he ruins the lives of the other characters and, as Mung points out, makes the viewer cry. I mean, he's not wrong, I was indeed crying. Of laughter. Chowder then fixes this by breaking the TV so that they have no show anymore. Beautiful, 10 out of 10 masterpiece. One of the best episodes in cartoon history, to be honest. Any other show would kill to have a fourth wall break as amazing as that. And the best part? That's not even the greatest and most iconic fourth wall break from this show.
No money means no animation.
What are we gonna do?
We've got to save the show.
But where are we gonna get the money to pay for it?
Yes, they really just filmed the voice actors doing a car wash in order to raise money to get the animation back, because the characters in the show spent all their money. This is genuinely the greatest fourth wall break in cinematic history. It doesn't even matter that Chowder isn't a movie. It's still the best in cinematic history because Chowder is cinema. Martin Scorsese is looking at Chowder and thinking, what the hell am I doing with my life? These are the most iconic fourth wall breaks from the show, but the show is littered with so many other smaller and simpler ones that manage to be just as hilarious. Many of them address the show itself, its structure, and how weird it is, while others play with the concept of its episodic format. I don't know why, but this joke always stuck out to me as being particularly hilarious.
Hello, what about me? No, you're not in this episode.
And the best part about the fourth wall jokes is that not only do they keep coming at an insane rate, but they never get old or repetitive. Each one is hilarious in its own right. And even without the fourth wall breaks, this show is just the master of traditional jokes and setups. One of my favorite episodes is the Bruised Blue Naba, because it just has it all in terms of comedy. It's got an excellent fourth wall joke, as you'd expect from Chowder, where Chowder starts recapping the entire events of the episode for Gazpacho, only for Gazpacho to get fed up with how long it's taking and fast forward the episode himself.
Somebody fast forward, there's no time!
So that's great. There's a ton of other standout one-off jokes here and there as well, but I mainly adore the absurdity of the brick jokes in this episode. At one point, Chowder attempts to vanish into thin air in order to hide from Panini, but Mung tells him it won't work because women can smell fear. Then the joke comes back later when Gazpacho attempts to disappear, and Chowder relays the same information Mung told him. It's golden. Then there's this other part where Chowder is swinging his arms back and forth to prove a point, and he gets stuck doing the motion, only for Schnitzel to come in and fix it. That's a cute, funny moment, and it makes sense because this is the kitchen, and Schnitzel works in the kitchen. There is logic to this event happening. But then later on, Panini is rocking her head back and forth, and she gets stuck the same way, only for Schnitzel to show up again and fix it. This joke is so good because the second instance of it happening removes the aforementioned logic from the scenario. Schnitzel and Panini barely know each other, and there's no reason for Schnitzel to be in this marketplace right now. But the fact that he shows up to do this for a character he barely knows, as if it's just a regular thing for him, escalates the absurdity so perfectly. This show is a master of escalating absurdity, in case you couldn't already tell. Speaking of which, I'm not even going to spoil how this episode's conflict is resolved. It's honestly too hilarious of a reveal. The whole schnitzel and panini joke also plays into the concept of nonsense humor very well. I talked about nonsense humor back in my Emperor's New Groove video way back when, but basically, I consider nonsense humor to be when a joke is absolutely hysterical, even when you can't pinpoint the reason why. It's completely illogical even from a comedic standpoint, which makes it even funnier than a regular joke. And my absolute favorite instance of nonsense humor in the show, the moment that probably stuck with me more than any other scene in the entire series, was this.
What is that? What the f*** is that? What is that?
To this day, I have no earthly idea what the writers were intending with this surreal, maniacal, inexplicable being. And yet, it is perhaps one of the funniest creations I have ever borne witness to in existence. I don't entirely understand why the characters are reacting as dramatically as they are to this creature, and yet, in a very real sense, I do. Even in a universe this wacky and insane, a being like this simply crosses the line in terms of things that were never meant to be seen by mortal eyes. This is what happens when you don't stop to question the creative decisions you're making as they're being made. This is utter chaos. This is sheer insanity. This is Chowder. This thing shows off another super unique aspect of Chowder, which is the sheer number of different types of animation it blends together. The show frequently has gags or entire scenes done with stop motion animation, CG, live action, and puppets. God, I love these puppets. Most of these are used for comedic effect, and they add so much spice and flair to the proceedings. This is honestly one of the most visually creative cartoons I've ever seen, thanks in no small part to the sheer variety of mediums the show utilizes. On top of that, the show has the super cool and iconic effect for the backgrounds of the characters' clothes. Even when the characters are moving, the backgrounds on them stay firmly in place, which makes for a really cool and distinct visual style. I love the fact that none of these touches were necessary, and most cartoons don't bother with these sort of things. Chowder was already going to be one of the funniest cartoons ever based on its writing alone. It really didn't need to have all these different animation styles and elements of visual flair in order to stand out. But the fact that it went the extra mile and included these elements is just incredible. It's a show that thrives on its attention to detail and delivers something unlike anything else in the realm of cartoons. There really is nothing quite like Chowder out there. Plenty of shows have absurd humor and unique animation that combines a variety of formats together, but very few of them take things to the same extremes as Chowder. It's a show where everything just came together so perfectly, from the writing to the vocal performances to the animation. All of it just clicks. It's not perfect, but it is unforgettable. A true comedic classic. There's so many more episodes I could talk about, like the one where there's a blackout and Chowder has to avoid all the weirdos who come out in order to have boring conversations. There's the episode where they play a convoluted sport dressed up with Mario icons on, only for Bowser to destroy the entire arena at the end. There's the episode where Mario and Luigi literally show up for some reason. There's the episode where this happens. There's the Kanishmas episode, the holiday special, which might be my favorite in the series because it's wholesome as well as hilarious. It even got the reanimated treatment recently, and that video is so good, you should watch it. And there's like a dozen more episodes that I could talk about. Honestly, on my most recent rewatch of the show, every time I thought I had seen each amazing joke the show had to offer, even more from my childhood that completely slipped my mind kept coming. This show is easily worth a watch whether you grew up with it or not, and I'm so glad it exists. I feel like it shaped my sense of humor growing up more than anything else I watched. And it was the only show growing up that I felt was on par with SpongeBob in terms of its comedy. Hell, it might have even been funnier. And it makes sense because Chowder's creator C.H. Greenblatt was a writer and storyboarder on SpongeBob. But yeah, imagine that episode of SpongeBob with the real gorilla, but the entire show is like that. And you basically got Chowder. I can't think of any higher praise than that. Anyway, I've gone on about it long enough. Chowder's on HBO Max in its entirety, and you should, without a doubt, check it out. It is masterpiece. Now I bet you're wondering how you can become as prestigious and amazing of a chef as Mung Dahl. Well, don't you worry, there's an easy way to become as skilled as he is. You can use Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. With topics like illustration, music production, film and video, and much more, you can explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. This is a site that legitimately makes learning new skills fun and easy, since the lessons are broken up into short chunks that you can watch at your own pace. It's so engaging as a result. With Skillshare, you can find inspiration in the moment and learn how to express your creativity. Right now, I'm really enjoying DIY Cinematography, Make Your Video Look Like a Movie by Ryan Booth. It's a great course for learning the most effective ways to film something in a variety of locations, and it offers a ton of incredibly helpful insight on the best ways to frame your subjects when filming them. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. Plus, the first 1,000 of my subscribers that click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. What are you waiting for? Click that link before all the spots are gone and enjoy this incredible supply of free knowledge.